Among the many unsolved cold cases, some are well known, like the cases of the Zodiac Killer and Jack the Ripper. These cases, for example, happened many years ago when technological advancements hadn't been made. But now that technology has improved, many cold cases have started to be solved. Here are 8 notorious true crime cold cases that have been solved recently. Hi there! Welcome to Eventful Insights. If you are knowledgeable about cold cases, then you will be thrilled to watch our topic for today. In this video, we'll be talking about 8 cold cases that have been solved recently, thanks to technological advancements. Are you ready? Before we begin, we'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. What true crime cold cases are you familiar with? And let's see if it will show up on our list later. Beginning with number 1, the Golden State Killer. The Golden State Killer created a reign of terror in California during the 1970s and 80s, victimizing more than 106 people. Despite committing at least 13 murders, 60 break-ins, and 50 rapes, he remained unidentified for many years. He was known by various names, including the Visalia Ransacker, East Area Rapist, and the Original Night Stalker. In 2018, law enforcement apprehended and accused Joseph James DeAngelo of 13 murder charges. To locate DeAngelo, investigators applied the methods previously used to track down the Bear Brook Killer. By cross-referencing online genealogy databases with DNA obtained from a Golden State Killer crime scene, they discovered a match. After identifying DeAngelo, they obtained DNA from his personal belongings, such as a discarded tissue and a swab from his car door handle, which were later matched with samples connected to Golden State Killer offenses. Were you familiar with this case? Moving to number 2, Bear Brook murders. In 1985, a hunter discovered the remains of a young girl and adult women in a metal 55-gallon drum at Bear Brook State Park. Another drum, containing the remains of 2 young girls, was found in 2000. Their identities remained unknown for many decades. But in 2017, investigators, along with genetic genealogist Barbara Ray Venter, used a new forensic method called genetic genealogy to link Terry Rasmussen, also known as the Chameleon Killer, to the Bear Brook murders. They also found out he was the father of the middle child among the victims. By then, Rasmussen had been dead for 7 years, and the identities of the 4 girls were still a mystery. Fast forward to 2019, when amateur investigator Becky Heath identified 3 of the 4 victims, Marlies Elizabeth Honeychurch and her daughters, Marie Elizabeth Vaughn and Sarah Lynn McWatters. Heath was exploring ancestry websites for clues to identify the victims when she came across the Honeychurch family searching for their daughter. Aligning with the timeline of the murders, Ray Venter used genetic genealogy to confirm their identities. However, the identity of the 4th victim, Rasmussen's child, remains unknown. Now, at number 3, the Grim Sleeper. From 1984 to 2007, the Grim Sleeper went after and killed Black women in southern Los Angeles who were in vulnerable situations. The killer stayed hidden for more than 30 years and got the name Grim Sleeper because he seemed inactive between murders in the 80s and ones in the 2000s, which investigators linked through DNA evidence. But in the late 2000s, a breakthrough in the Grim Sleeper case occurred when the killer's son had to give a DNA sample after getting arrested for carrying a weapon in 2008. Investigators found a family connection to the DNA evidence from the old case. Lonnie D. Franklin Jr. was arrested in 2010 after authorities confirmed his link to the murders. A detective, pretending to be a busboy, collected DNA from a partially eaten slice of pizza that Franklin left behind. This marked the first use of familial DNA to catch a murder suspect in the U.S. In 2016, Franklin was found guilty of 10 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Franklin passed away in 2020, but it is believed that there may be more victims. For number 4, we have the I65 or Days Inn Killer. From 1987 to 1990, 4 women who were employed at hotels along the I65 Midwest Highway, spanning from Indiana to Kentucky, faced brutal attacks involving robbery and sexual assault. Although the 4th victim managed to escape, Becky Heath, Margaret Peggy Jill, and Jean Gilbert did not survive their assaults. The serial killer managed to escape detection by authorities for 3 decades and died without being identified. Although the police identified patterns in the attacks, got a composite sketch from the fourth victim, and linked the cases through DNA evidence, they couldn't catch the killer until recent advancements in genetic technology. Just like in other cases we've talked about, investigators had a breakthrough when they used genetic genealogy to match the attacker's DNA with ancestry records. In 2022, after 35 years of investigation, they linked the killings and assault to Harry Edward Greenwell. Greenwell, who had a long history of criminal activities, died in 2013 at the age of 68. However, there are still ongoing investigations into other unsolved murders, rapes, and robberies connected to him. What case were you most familiar with? Let us know in the comments below. Now let's continue with the fifth case on our list, the Boston Strangler. Albert DeSalvo, known as the Boston Strangler, murdered 13 women in the Boston area from 1962 to 1964. Even though DeSalvo confessed, there wasn't any physical evidence tying him to the murders, so he was never formally convicted for them. Instead, he faced charges for earlier, unrelated crimes like robbery and sexual offenses. DeSalvo received a life sentence, but until recently, there has been ongoing debate about the credibility of his confession. In 2013, the Boston Police Department revealed that they had obtained DNA evidence related to the murder of Mary Sullivan, which showed a familial match to Albert DeSalvo. To confirm this connection, investigators collected a DNA sample from a water bottle belonging to DeSalvo's nephew. By testing the male chromosomes passed down through generations, they found a match with the 1964 semen sample. To further solidify the evidence, DeSalvo's body was later exhumed, and a direct DNA sample confirmed an exact match. Well, there was recently a movie about the Boston Strangler. Have you watched it yet? We're now down to the last three cases on our list. Moving on to number 6, we have the Lady of the Dunes. During the summer of 1974, a hiker discovered a decaying body on a beach blanket in the dunes of Provincetown, Massachusetts. Despite the police checking motels, reviewing missing person reports, and examining every authorized vehicle in the dunes, the case went unsolved. The unidentified victim, dubbed the Lady of the Dunes, became the oldest unsolved homicide case in Massachusetts. So how was she identified? In 2018, Richard Hanchett started searching for his biological mother, who had put him up for adoption in 1958. He used Ancestry.com, where he submitted his DNA and discovered his mother was Ruth Marie Terry from Tennessee. Unfortunately, he found out that she had been reported missing many years ago. In 2022, the FBI officially identified the Lady of the Dunes as Ruth Marie Terry through DNA testing. Although her body had been exhumed in 2000 for DNA collection, it wasn't until advances in genetic genealogy that they could identify her. Hanchett, who began his quest to find his unknown biological mother 4 years earlier, provided a DNA sample as requested by investigators. This confirmed that Ruth Marie Terry was indeed his biological mother. It was later revealed that Guy Rockwell Moldavan, Terry's now-deceased husband, was likely responsible for her death. Moldavan was also a suspect in the deaths of his wife and stepdaughter in 1960. Furthermore, the second to the last on our list is the deaths of Jay Cook and Tanya Van Coilenborg. In November 1987, Jay Cook and Tanya Van Coilenborg, a couple from British Columbia, Canada, headed to Seattle to buy parts for Cook's father's business. Sadly, they never came back, and their murders remained unsolved for 30 years. Here's how their killer was identified. In 2015, Chelsea Rustad won a DNA spit kit in a contest. Little did she know that her DNA profile would play a crucial role in solving the 1987 double murder of Cook and Van Coilenborg. By uploading her DNA, investigators discovered a genetic similarity between Rustad's DNA and the samples collected from the crime scene. Through genetic genealogy, they linked Rustad's cousin, William Earl Talbot II, to the murders, as his DNA was a perfect match to that found at the crime scene. Talbot was later tried and convicted of the murders in 2019. Finally, the last case on our list, the BTK. Between 1974 and 1991, Dennis Rader, who called himself BTK, stands for Bind, Torture, Kill, killed at least 10 people in Kansas. BTK played mind games by sending letters to the police, media, and the public, dropping hints about who he was and describing details of the crimes that only the killer would know. Then, he suddenly stopped, and the case remained unsolved for 13 years. But in 2004, he started sending mysterious letters again, which eventually led to his identification and arrest in 2005. In any case, we'll tell you how it took place. Here's what happened. In 2005, BTK reached out to the police, suggesting they trace him using a floppy disk. The police encouraged him to send one, and when he did, investigators found metadata on the disk that pointed to a man named Dennis Rader. Later on, the police got DNA from Rader's daughter, without her knowing, and it closely matched the DNA from a crime scene. This led to Rader's arrest. The BTK case marked an early use of familial DNA in law enforcement. Currently, Rader is serving a life sentence in prison, and he's under investigation for more unsolved cases. And that's it. Those were the 8 true crime cold cases that have been solved recently. How many cases were you familiar with? And if there's one cold case you'd like to see how it's solved, what would it be? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed watching this video, support us by giving us a like, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell to get notified on our next video. Thanks for watching.